Hello, everybody. Warmly welcome to the Nordic Battery webinar called Nordic Battery Thursdays. Today, we are going to talk about navigating through turbulence, the Nordic perspectives topic. And the background is such that we updated the industry voice from the Nordics to reflect the current situation in the battery industry. Navigating through turbulence obviously is stating that there are challenges, there's turbulence, and especially in European battery industry, there are particular topics currently which companies, of course, trying to solve. But challenges there is. On the other side, we must state that there's also plenty of success cases available in the Nordics. Say electrification on the heavy duty is going strongly forward. There's profitable business there. Also recycling is showing sort of good progress. So the point here is that, and the message we hear from the industry is that challenges there is, but we need to sort of stick to the game and work forward together. So that's the background of the industry report made and with the updated voice of the industry. Let me give you a little bit of background of the Nordic Battery collaboration. And this report being a sort of result of this collaboration. So Nordic Battery collaboration, we have been operational for almost 5 years now, and the reason and for the topics we are doing, we are supporting the industry in the long run, because we believe that the long-term perspective is the one that creates results. And we do it in many ways. We are bringing the Nordics together in the summits to discuss and get to know each other, create business within Nordics together. And that's obviously in a current situation in the global market. It's you could even say that it's more important than ever before. We are also utilizing the complementary strengths of the Nordics in terms of battery ecosystem. We have been creating a common Nordic battery ecosystem, which we use when we go to the markets. That has been a very successful approach, say in Japan, South Korea, US, and Germany. So we are bringing the Nordics together and utilizing the complementary strengths on the markets. And then finally, we work tightly together with the stakeholders. So say here, the 3 trade promotion organizations are the basis, and their global networks. We work tightly together. We are happy to have as our partner the Nordic Innovation. We are working tightly with the embassies around the world. And finally, European Battery Alliance is our very close friend, and we are collaborating on the weekly basis on the European situations. So maybe that is enough for the Nordic Battery collaboration background. And now going to this webinar here. So after my sort of initial talks, we will invite Anna from Business Sweden to give the highlights of the Nordic perspectives from this report, followed by Gustaf from Business Sweden having a panel discussion with 3 Nordic companies, and then followed by Håkan Lind from Nordic Innovation talking about the importance of the Nordic collaboration, and then finally Benedicte from Innovation Norway giving some concluding remarks of this webinar. But without further ado, I hope you can sort of find this interesting. So let's get going. So Anna, why don't you take over the floor here? Thank you.
Thank you, Ilkka, for those welcoming remarks. It is a pleasure for for us to be here today to introduce you to the key findings from the interview study, Navigating Through Turbulence, the Nordic Perspective. My name is Anna Sundlöf Eriksson. I'm a Senior Product Manager at Business Sweden, based out of our Norway office. And I've been happy to product manage this report along with my colleague, Victor Vilners. This study was conducted throughout the spring. We conducted some 20-25 interviews with industry stakeholders across the Nordic value chain, who graciously shared their insights on the current situation, what challenges they see, how they mitigate them, and what their needs are. So thank you very much for that. Without further ado, let's dive in. So, as Ilkka already alluded to, yes, there is experienced uncertainty across the battery ecosystem, and we do see a challenging business climate due to that. One way of looking at it is to look at the gigafactory likelihood or gigafactory capacity likelihood, which has become more uncertain worldwide, but notably in North America and Europe, where the project likelihood is shifting from more likely to less likely. And this also mirrors well the impressions that we get from the industry stakeholders that we've interviewed, with a challenging landscape, it being very difficult for many across the value chain, but also in generally an increased uncertainty.
When it comes to the uncertain business climate, especially 4 drivers are highlighted by the interviewees. One is Chinese competition that challenges European business models. So Chinese companies dominating the global marketplace with lower prices, more technology advanced, and abundant quantities, which in turn creates difficulties for domestic European actors to compete and scale in a sustainable way across the value chain. Secondly, we see a risk-averse investment climate preventing companies to scale up in the fashion that it needs. So European companies do find struggle in locating sufficient funds to scale up, as investors are more hesitant at this time, moving from a more proof of concept to a proof of market approach when assessing their business cases and investment cases and their risks. Thirdly, we see the regulatory landscape that is taking shape in a positive way, namely initiatives such as the Net Zero Industry Act, the Critical Raw Materials Act, the Clean Industrial Deal, but the long-term direction and meeting the urgency and the needs now or in near term are also not fully there. Last but not least, the geopolitical situation and the trade restrictions impacting many industries also finds their impacts in the battery ecosystem, where it has heightened the cautiousness across the industry, which leads companies to delay investments as effects of localization, supply, and the necessary collaboration across new business patterns is not fully established yet.
So, looking then at the value chain of the battery ecosystem, where do these challenges hit? Well, we see testimonies across the entire value chain, but where positional differences might be the case. Some mentioned are then the matters of price and competing on price. Others are receiving investments has grown more difficult, as mentioned in the previous slide. We do see, of course, the regulatory landscape being highlighted as a bit uncertain, as well as switching suppliers due to trade war. So localizing your supply chain in a greater way is not necessarily always that easy. Some of your solutions and mechanisms and suppliers are working with you in a quite tailor-made fashion.
So, what impact does this have on the value chain, or more rather, how have companies mitigated these risks across their business models? Well, there are namely 4 that are mentioned. One is postponing investments across production facilities, recruitment, and R&D. Second, localizing supply chains to a greater extent to decrease global supply risk and tap into local differences to also increase sales. Thirdly, providing more varied product options, not just product solutions and offerings as such, but also in shifting and diverging their focus on different customer groups than initially estimated or planned. And last but not least, engaging with policymakers and stakeholders, this to shape the framework and the playing field that is needed in order to scale competitively and to secure the future of their business.
Now, despite the turbulence that is experienced, it's also very clear from the industry that the electrification is happening and there are business opportunities in electrification and there is a significant growth to tap into. We do see that electricity will reach 40 to 50% of the energy system by 2050, driven by rising demand across a variety of sectors, but notably from and within road transport, making the most significant shift coming from a less electrified starting point, as well as growing storage capacity, which will be needed, for instance, in the deployment of renewables and balancing the grid, to name some. So what strength do we then see in the Nordics, even in these turbulent times, and what do you draw from? Well, for those of you who have seen the Nordic Battery reports previous years, are familiar with some of the Nordic strengths that have been highlighted across the industry previously. So abundant deposit of raw materials, connected logistics, green and stable energy at low cost, productive workforce, and tangible actions for sustainability. These are all still true. What is now highlighted in this report to a greater extent is maybe the key value-adding factors that are more likely to be taken for granted, such as culture and flat hierarchies, experience from European first movers and industry legacies that comes from the Nordics, stable political climate compared to many other places in the world, and well-developed ecosystems. All of this still rings true and is maybe, as Ilkka mentioned in his remarks, more important than ever today. We also shouldn't forget that the Nordic companies are very well established as key players in continental Europe already. Here you see an illustrative example of some companies and their positions in terms of production and R&D sites. So also Nordic companies already having a strong reputation across the EU supply chain and around the world, and not the least to mention from a sustainability and innovation point of view. The Nordic region is also well connected with each other. So not only does the Nordic come together in a third market, but also it comes together as a strong region by itself. And the Nordic also has key actors and a competence across a full battery value chain, so complementing each other based on its industry legacies in the different countries, and really building a full offering when also going out into the world. So what is then mentioned that is needed to remain competitive? Well, companies call for mainly 4 areas of support. One is supporting European content in battery cells to secure upstream development and really to enable a full European value chain. Level the playing field between EV and ICE and global markets, so making it, of course, also competitive to also put weight behind the electrified solutions that are out there as well. Enable public-private partnerships. We talk about funding. We talk about enabling and lowering the risks for making capital-intensive investments, and also aligning the Nordic grants and funds. Many within the European realm are often focusing on a European context, but what if a Nordic grant could make use of the uniqueness of the Nordics, such as cold climate, and testing that and building that innovation ecosystem going forward. With that, For anyone who wants to speak about the Nordics, we are here to talk to you. Please find our colleagues here with their contact addresses to reach out to if you ever want to speak more about the Nordics. And with that, we look forward to hearing more from the Nordics in the next bit of this webinar, speaking to the panel. With that, I hand over to you, Gustaf.
Thank you very much, Anna. My name is Gustaf Sandegren from Business Sweden, and I'm really glad to moderate today's Nordic Battery panel. With us, we have 3 exciting companies across the region. Talga from Sweden, that develops sustainable anode materials. Celltech from Finland, delivering smart battery systems. And Morrow from Norway, scaling up next generation battery cell production. Before we continue with the panel, please a round of introductions from you. Martin, take it away.
Thanks, Gustaf. Talga has been in the supply chain. The raw materials we produce are graphite, and the second stage of refining is also done by Talga, and we're banking that into anode material. And so by Talga doing both in northern Sweden, we complete the full supply chain that would otherwise perhaps be done in Asia. So we provide both graphite and anode. We have pilot plants, and we're running those out of Luleå.
Thank you very much, Martin. Stina?
Yeah, thank you, Gustaf. So Stina Torjesen from Morrow Batteries. So Morrow Batteries, we're a cell manufacturing company in southern Norway. Really exciting times for us now. We're ramping up our production, on track for commercial deliveries in Q3 with our LFP battery cell. So we're working towards 1 gigawatt-hour capacity in our battery cell production. That will make us really one of the largest, or if not the largest, LFP producer in Europe now currently. We're also then have a heavy kind of R&D element to our company. So we're also working towards the next generation battery chemistry, LNMO, where we take out cobalt to reduce nickel and increase the manganese. So exciting times for us, and very happy to be here.
Thank you. I'll have Kim in also.
Thank you, Gustaf. My name is Kim Nikitin. I work for the Celltech Oy from Finland, and I'm part of the Celltech group, which we have been working for batteries and developing different kind of battery systems over 4 decades to the global markets, mainly in the Europe. We work with all the cell technologies, and we produce from low voltage battery systems over 800 volt battery systems in the different industrial fields. And we have our own R&D and own production in the full speed. And for the non-road mobile machinery, where we are utilizing the larger battery systems, we are working at the moment in Tampere, Finland. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as mentioned in the report, and just to give a little bit of an outlook on a quite rather dynamic market for the past year, what's your reflection? This is a question to all of you, of the current business climate right now.
Yeah, should I give it a go first? Or
absolutely.
Yeah, so and I'm sure my fellow panelists, I'm sure you'll agree. I think it's really defined by unpredictability. I think we see a lot of caution, particularly among the investors, for our kind of really looking to see what's kind of happening in the market. So certainly a lot of unpredictability, but I think there are also some positives. And on our side, it's really, we see a number of players really searching for European supply, and I think the advantages of sourcing from Europe has really greatly increased. So that kind of puts, on our side, that puts us in a much more attractive position. So that's an interesting development. Martin and Kim, what would you add?
Yeah, I'm on the positive side. I think the geopolitical risk that has been presented globally offers for us, we're explaining that specifically China, but also other countries that are at risk of supplying raw materials into Europe. There's a huge risk now that's being posed as to how to get that risk mitigated. And so in our discussions with many of the downstream customers, it's associated with the restrictions on rare earths and graphites associated with that restriction and export licensing. So I'd also highlight that the defence budgets have now increased, and graphite for us has been highlighted as a major risk for the defence industry. So on the back of that, it is around batteries, of course, but you think of drones, you think of submarines, you think of much of the mobility, and electric vehicles are becoming a big thing with in terms of new technology occurring in the defence budget. So that's a positive, I think, for us, and that's where we're getting a lot of interest.
Thank you.
Yeah, from my side, I concur with Stina and Martin that the past, let's say, 9 months have been a positive trend, slightly positive trend. Maybe the quantity of inquiries have gone down, but the quality has increased. So there's a clear, not so high budget from the customers, but clear roadmaps how to go forward. And like Martin said, it has been strongly emphasized now, the rigidness, the long-term way of the whole supply chain and where it's coming from, and that has been highlighted. So I would say that there's no hockey stick increase in the short term, but in the longer term, we are feeling much more highly confident than we, let's say, did 18 months ago.
Yeah. And just reverting back to you once more, Kim, regarding the strengths in the Nordic regions, what strengths do you see and how can we leverage them?
Well, I always like to talk about the business is about the people and the skill set and way to cooperate together and find solutions in the positive way. So you know, we tend to in the Scandinavia to at the end in the situation of turbulence to be quite pragmatic and calm and find the solutions, and instead of just highlighting the problems. And that is something that I see and we see a strong value, and we see our customers respecting also. Keeping the head calm and situation is what it is in the world, and let's move accordingly. So I would put that our cultural background, our stability, and our very, very skilled people, human resources who are actually able to work together inside the companies, between the companies and across the border. I think that is a very, very big strength for us in the Nordics.
Yeah, I fully agree. And a key takeout from my side is that the collaboration is no longer aspirational, so to say. The industry wants it in a operationalized way to see it as a component that can pivot the business and make us grow together.
And to add to that as well, I think also the ability to kind of build trust among us. I think that is very easy. I mean, we have our partnership with Stina Recycling, for example, very kind of complementary to us. So we are kind of scaling up. Stina is a very well established player, and finding it very hard finding it very, very easy to collaborate, kind of thinking long term with them, and also really sharing commitment to then recycling and really finding the best environmental solutions with kind of attention to safety. Similar as well with our collaboration with Proventia in Finland as well, that will use our cells in their applications. So again, finding it very easy to collaborate, I think, across the Nordics.
Totally agree. And as discussed or presented by Anna, and also highlighted somewhat in your comments here, a question to Martin regarding the policy support needed. What do you see as a regulatory or support aspect that could be leveraged as a positive effect to you?
Yeah, policy support is absolutely critical, I think, for the upstream supply chains. I think the battery industry has received some strong support to be funded and to start building large-scale gigafactories. The upstream supply chain has to be competitive. We need to scale, and we need to get to scale from these pilot plants. So policies related, I think, to ensuring that the supply chains grow at the same pace and the same scale that they're funding the gigafactories is important. And what sort of policies relate to that is, I think, to do with the supply chain being a component, an important local component. It can start off relatively small because of the nature of, I think, of building a supply chain, but we need to ensure that the battery passport has that local content. We need to ensure that the critical raw material, that there's some accountability given to battery and OEMs so that they ensure that they maintain both the 40% is needed for processed materials and components and 10% for extracted materials. So that's something I really like to see. Unfortunately, Omnibus has sort of pushed some of these timelines out, and we need the support to bring them back in and to try and get the scaling that we need. The second thing is just a bit more risk is needed, I think, to be given to government. They need to be able to accept a little bit more risk. I think the risk profiles that's expected to go through that scale step, which is to jump from pilot up to commercial, that's a risk that is difficult for, I think, private investors to assess, as I think it's already been discussed, and that government perhaps need to play a role it's a short-term time frame, but in terms of offtakes and to get us into that level of scale that's needed, someone needs to just accept a little bit more risk, and the sorts of banking instruments that can be implemented, I think the government need to play a role there.
If I could just add to that, exactly, I think this combination of guarantees and loans, I mean, is really crucial in this stage, and also this combining with public procurement and attention to European content. Doesn't have to be fully European content, but some kind of nudging in that relation is really important. And I think, you know, the crucialness of public procurement is often overlooked. In Norway, it's been really important, the procurement of electric ferries, particularly on the west coast, which is then kind of allowed for the maritime industry and the work around that to kind of really electrify. Corvus is a great example coming out of that, and with that kind of safety of the public procurement, if you like, and the initial nudge. In China as well, China, one of the many of the key players now in the massive Chinese establishment are really kind of emerged in the kind of public procurement phases by Chinese regions and cities of public buses, for example. So kind of building markets through public procurement and a little bit of kind of alleviating risk on the side of the government. That's really where we want to go, as Martin said, I think really eloquently. So yeah, that's the kind of the business case for decarbonization, and really helping that kind of the scaling is really crucial.
Yeah, Kim, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm on the same side that, you know, we need to have a more a little bit, let's say, active approach from the government side on the funding for the upstream companies, and also have a strong position on the legislation and clarity how that will go forward. Because if that landscape is unclear from the funding side or from the regulatory side, that will immediately see as a private investment levels and what are the things happening on there, which will affect on the whole electrification significantly.
Yeah. And maybe not on the same thread, so to say, but kind of pivoting into that. The geopolitics and the Nordics, how does it combine at this moment? Stina, this is somewhat of your home turf, but Martin and Kim, please break in also.
Yeah, exactly. So as we kind of alluded to in the beginning, I think, you know, at this moment in time, you know, we see this fierce competition between China and the US, of course. You have the trade war, but it actually gives quite a lot of uncertainty. It gives us uncertainty in terms of some of the access to some of the supplies, and that actually alleviates a bit and and provides a more kind of a more positive case and a more positive interest, I think, in European supply. But then we have the European Union then reacting and really trying to find Europe's place, both in relation to China and in relation to the US, right? And this is the moment we're in. And I think the European Union at the moment is taking a quite pragmatic approach, right? Where we are very much allowing for continued business collaboration with China, which is positive. But it's really about finding, you know, our place in a sense in this very kind of shifting landscape. So it adds a lot of uncertainty, but again, it's not kind of all negatives for the European battery industry, and it's really about kind of seeing the opportunities that this very kind of tense picture offers us. And I think we will be stuck with this picture for a long time. I think the uncertainties that, of course, the Trump administration brings to the table, you know, they're one kind of level off, but I think the structural element of how the world really kind of copes with now a very powerful and economically vibrant China, very innovative China that kind of really is at the cutting edge of a lot of technologies, how the world kind of accommodates that and how Europe finds its place in relation to that, kind of reaping the advantages, but still taking care of European competitiveness, Nordic competitiveness. That's really the context we're in. And then it's up to us, Morrow, Talga and Celltech, to kind of find our place within this really shifting landscape.
Precisely. Yeah, my take on this is also that we, of course, can compete, but not as prices you mentioned, Stina, but we have high quality, high sustainability, and we also are quite traceable alternative in terms of origin of the components towards the cell and also into the application. But just looking on reverting back to, let's say, the business strategy, Kim, what's your, let's say, strategy for the coming years? Are there any changes made, or do you stay put?
No, of course, the landscape changes. You know, you have to pivot a little bit your strategy. Our core strategy is still working on the non-road mobile machinery and the, let's say, niche applications where the high demands for the technical competence is required and the quality of the products. That is our core strategy. But what has now come to the side, there's two major changes last 18, 24 months. One is that, okay, talks about that you have to be more localized, have a European supply chain security. That has emphasized that that's like now on the one of the main points that we are talking with our customers and turning that into reality. And the second one is something that then Martin told that which will be driving the whole electrification is the defense sector. And what comes from there, that's also for us in the little bit in the downstream of the business side, which then allows us to also technically develop and commercially develop our businesses also in the commercial side. So those two are the high focus for the, let's say, coming 1 to 2 years before something else strange happens in the world, and then we have to re-pivot again. But that we are used to now. So yeah. Let's see.
A dynamic world, as stated.
Yes.
Yes. Martin, you have done a lot of things in Talga Group for the past years, but what positive developments are you most proud of, and what gives you energy of looking ahead, so to say?
I'm most proud of our the IP that we've developed. We've developed a full supply chain to make from graphite to flake to a fully coated anode material that can be sold and is qualified to be used in a range of batteries. So that IP is a key barrier to entry on anyone. It's taken us 6 years to secure that IP. We traveled the world. We went to China, we went to Japan and a range of places to try and secure partners. And we selected the machinery mainly out of Japan and brought them into Sweden and built pilot plants and a fully Nordic workforce is operating as we speak. So that's been a key thing. The other area has just been the balance of stakeholders, and in the mining industry and in the downstream side, doing both projects, there's a large group of stakeholders, both regarding our community and Indigenous groups in and around the mine, government, customers, and indeed our shareholders. So it's been remarkable how we've been able to continue to finance and to push and to build these projects all the way through to where we are. So today, the next critical steps for us is to build the scale. We've purchased land. We've built some of the underground services, but we're now involved in strategic investor discussions, and some of them may be foreign investment. So we do work with Business Sweden closely around how to develop this project. I do support how we are all partnering together and looking at ways to solve this supply chain question around how to billions and billions is needed in order to build this supply chain. And the Nordics have got an incredible opportunity here with the prospectivity and the richness of minerals and processing capacity and infrastructure for energy. We can supply all of Europe, I think, in most of its needs. So I feel that a huge amount of investment's needed, and I think it's important that we all focus now, for us anyway, working with groups like we have here, Business Sweden and others, to finance it.
Thank you very much. And as a final round before we end this panel, if you were to send one short message to Nordic and European policymakers, if we want to build a competitive battery value chain, what questions should we address? Kim, please start.
Yeah, from our side, I think that it's part of having the financial components available for the companies and the clarity, and let's be proud what we are in this turbulent world. We come from our view of the world and how we see it, and we consider it as a right. So let's be proud of that one, and let's stick to that one for the long term, and trust on that one. It will be a good end result for us from the Nordics.
Yeah, and on my side as well, I think it's the key message on my side would just be stay the course. I think we have, the framework in place now, the EU Clean Industrial Deal, on our side, the battery booster, we see the contours of a viable framework, also a framework where sustainability performance is rewarded, for example. So staying the course in that, and staying the course in supporting the scale of journeys of all of us. I think that is really, really, really key. And just to add to, on our side, again, being proud, I think we're really proud of the fact that we are actually reaching scale, right? That we've gone from a pilot factory line in South Korea to actually large scale production now in southern Norway. So that it is possible, in a sense, is also a key message. The battery value chain is unfolding in front of our eyes, and the Nordic component is very strong. So let's just keep pushing.
Yeah, Martin.
Yeah, I think policymakers can really think about how to make the battery industry again attractive for investors. It's received some bad publicity. The EV sector has slowed. There's a lot of talk about China, but how do we make it attractive again for investors? The investor market are on the sidelines. They're not putting the money in, and so while we can get some government money, often it needs to be a consortium, and we need dollar for dollar. You have to bring in the investors. So there needs to be some thinking around how to make this industry attractive, and the government need to really show intent by whether it's in the nature of approvals and permitting, or in the nature of offering more calls for funding, and to talk about the industry a lot more, and in terms of reform. And some of that may be more Brussels, like trade, and a little bit of tariffs, I think, is not a bad thing. A little bit of protectionism is okay, but these are just elements of how to make this attractive for investors. And a lot of it's just short term, because once that the sell prices and those things come back into normal territory, everything will start moving again. But we just need to get through this next few years by making sure that investors see the business case. Because at the moment, I think it's a difficult business case to sell alone on sustainability. You need to get some of these other drivers.
Yeah. Thank you very much, guys, for this panel. A pleasure to host you, and to the viewers also. This is really showcasing the strength in the Nordic battery ecosystem, where we are very open to collaborate with you players also. And on that sentence, I would like to hand over to Håkan Lind at Nordic Innovation.
Thank you, Gustaf. First of all, a big thank you to Innovation Norway, Business Finland, and Business Sweden for the great collaboration through the Nordic Battery Collaboration. At Nordic Innovation, we've proudly supported this effort since 2022, and honestly, it's more important today than ever. As today's report shows, the battery industry is under pressure, geopolitical tension, rising costs, competition from China, and shifting regulations. It's a tough climate for many. But even in this storm, the Nordic region stands out, not just for what we do, but how we do it. We have green energy and affordable energy. We have highly skilled people and strong institutions, and we have a long tradition of trust-based cross-border collaboration. That's a powerful combination, especially now. Let's zoom out for a moment. In Europe, we consume about 25% of the world's raw materials, but we only produce 3%, and that gap is not sustainable. To address this, the European Union has outlined 4 key priorities, and all 4 are directly relevant to what we're talking about here today. Number 1, stronger industrial value chains from raw material to recycling. Number 2, reduce dependency on virgin resources through circular solutions. Number 3, increased raw material production and processing within Europe, which we talk about here today. Here, the Nordics really can take lead. Number 4, diversified supply through sustainable international trade. Because resilience also means building global partnerships that share our values. These are big goals, but we already have Nordic actors across the entire battery value chain. What we need now is better alignment in regulation, in funding, and in public-private partnerships that can deliver real impact. At Nordic Innovation, we see this sector not just as a strategic industry, but as a test case. A test of whether we as a region are serious about working together. So let's keep pushing, let's keep building, and let's keep proving that Nordic collaboration is not just a nice idea, but a competitive advantage. Thank you, Gustaf.
Yes, thank you everyone for participating in this panel. And I must admit that during parts of this, I was really, moved. My job is to come with some closing remarks here, but I just have to say that hearing Kim talking about the Nordic Foundation, be proud of who we are and how we work together. That's what we're really seeing here as the Nordic value add, that we sit down openly, pragmatically, solve big problems. And we see great partnerships across the board here. So that's just my personal take after watching you here, is that the collaborative spirit is so strong. And Gustaf had a very good quote here. Collaboration is no longer aspirational. We see that we're really doing it, and it's pivoting us. And all 3 of you are also talking about how you're a bit more optimistic now than you were 9 months ago or 18 months ago, because we have problems and we're seeing the exact same challenges as the rest of Europe. But it seems that we have a few extra tools in our toolbox that can help lift us. Stina and Morrow talked not only about the great collaboration they have with Finnish and Swedish companies, but also a public procurement, how important the Norwegian public procurement has been, how we can utilize that. That's also part of a Nordic toolbox. making sure that, okay, maybe you don't buy 100% European in the first run, but by parts of your supply as European, so that you're guaranteeing your resilience. So I see some very strong signs here. Talga, really, they have their IP for the whole value chain on something that China has been threatening to stop, that is stopping the whole value chain of Europe. Morrow is scaling up, reaching scale. And I think the message here is stay the course, focus on sustainability, local content, resilience, and be proud of who we are. The Nordic, the common values of trust, sustainability, safety, equality, they're enabling us to work across the value chain and to increase the synergies. And the world is quite difficult now, the business world. So if you can have 2 + 2 become 5, then maybe you will make it to the next step. And that's what I'm seeing here. Very, very happy for that. I'd also like to thank Håkan because he did a very good summary. So I just skipped my whole summary part. And Håkan and Nordic Innovation have been a very, very important supporter and partner for us in the Nordic Battery collaboration, giving us clout and resources, and we're extremely happy for that. It's very important. And also the European Battery Alliance, giving us the factual strengths, as it were, so that we know where we should place ourselves in this large landscape. So I'd like to thank those, and then just tell you a little bit about, we are all going to, the Nordic Battery Collaboration is going to the World Expo at Osaka in September. And you're all invited to come and join us and showcase what we are doing, because even if the Nordics and Europe, we have a lot of offer, we need strong partners. Some of them are definitely in Asia. So we would love to have you join us. We're going both to Japan in September, and we're also going to Korea together as the Nordics, and it's open for all of those companies working with us. And we'll also be having like a Nordic Battery Summit in Oslo in September, where we try to just get the group together and see what more we can do. Focus will be really on research and next generation batteries, how we can collaborate going forwards. And with this very non-scripted I very almost emotional, because I'm so proud of this collaboration. I thank you for today, and good luck, all of us.